Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome back, folks. This is the decimal multiplication part 2. So I'm going to go through a couple of questions that I gave my student Amina to do for her classwork now. So I'm going to recap those questions, so a few different types of questions. But before I go into that, do the new question, I just want to point out to you one small error that was made in the previous video. In the previous video, when I mentioned about giving the numbers in columns, I labeled this 1/10 units and tenths correctly. So the 7 looks like it's in the wrong column because the 7 is 7 unit. But here really what I meant to say is keep the numbers in columns. At the moment we're not actually worried about is the tens in the tenths columns, is the units in the units columns. We're setting the question out like a traditional timesing question. You got 2 digits, 1 digit. The 1 digit goes under there just to make the question look more uniform. We don't need to worry about putting the 7, which is the unit, into the units column, because the technique is as what we've done earlier. We've got to count the decimal places, count them in the question and put them back in the answer. So that takes out all we need to know about the decimal point, how it functions in this type of question. So really that labeling on the top I think might have confused some of the first video. So I'm just saying take that off, please. Just get them into columns here, and then you put your decimal places by counting them back in the question. So without any further delay, let's move on to our part 2 of the questions. So okay, let's put this off. Okay, right, first question number 3. 4.8 times by 7. Right, 4.8 times by 7. So according to our rule, what do? We need to count the number of decimal places. Decimal point, decimal place is 1. We have 1 decimal place in the question. There's no decimal point here, no decimal places. So you have 1 decimal place in our question. So we'll have 1 decimal place in our answer. Okay, that's our statement. So we've counted, made a statement, now we do the question. As mentioned earlier, the number 7, even though it's a 7 units, is placed under the 8 for neatness, and we're not taking any consideration that the 7 needs to go over here. It doesn't matter for this part of the question. So 8 times by 7, okay, that'll give you 56. Okay, 4 times by 7 will give you 28. 28, add 5, give you 33. Now, you probably thought I've missed out the decimal point. Why didn't I put it in there like in the previous questions? Whether you put it in there before you start the question or you put it afterwards, it doesn't matter. But the most important thing is we kind of now look, we made this statement, start from the end, put the decimal point in. So whether you put the decimal point in before you start putting the numbers in or you put it in after you finish the numbers, you must always look back on this and look at your statement. I've got a statement here, 1 decimal place in the answer, so I've got to put the 1 decimal place in the answer. Done. Okay, that's the first question, question number 3. Let's look at question number 10. Why these things don't rub off the board properly? God knows. I am using barrel markers, but for some reason it still doesn't seem to be. Okay, let's give me one moment. Okay, Amina, your mum's arrived. Grab your bag. Okay, right. Right, just grab your books. I'll continue this video in a second, folks. Alright, let's carry on for number question 10. Right. 30.5 times by 1 times by 15. We're going to count the number of decimal places in the question. So we have 30, there's the point. So we have 1 decimal place. We have no decimal places over here. Okay, right. Okay. Wait. Yes, sir. Okay, so I'll see you next week. So we have 1 decimal place in the question. So we have 1 decimal place in the answer. There's no decimal point here or place. So let's do the question. Okay, so we're just setting the numbers as though we're just numbers. 305, 15, make it look nice and neat. Now the rule says here that we're going to have 1 decimal place in the answer. So put it right from the beginning. As we've done before, we use this. Cut off the second number. So we do 305 times by 5 on the first line. Multiply by the first digit on the first line. Right, here we go. So we have 5 times by 5 is 25. 0 times by 5 is 0. Add the 2 is 2. 3 times by 5 is, push all the numbers into their own columns, push the numbers across. So now we can take it off there and put it onto there. So we put a 0 down on the next line to push the numbers across. My first number should be in this column here. So now we're going to do 305 multiplied by 1. The decimal point has been taken care of in the technique that we've used. So we don't need to keep mentioning 30.5 times by 1 and start putting decimal points in here. We don't do that. 5 times by 1 is 5. 0 times by 1 is 0. 3 times by 1 is 3. Okay. So now we need to add them up like we do in a normal multiplication question. 5 add 0 is 5. 2 add 5 is 7. 5 add nothing is 5. And then we have 1 add 3, which is 4. Okay, that's the end of that question. Right, let's move that over there. Okay, okay, alright, give us one moment please. Yeah. Okay folks, sorry for that short delay. Okay, let's drop this board down and move on to the next question. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So we've done question number 10. These 2 questions have been done. 59.6 times by 0.7 now. 59.6 times by 0.7. Right, let's look at this question now. This question has in it decimal point. That's 1 decimal place. Decimal point, 1 decimal place. Okay, so altogether how many decimal places do we have? 1 add 1 will give you 2. So we have 2 decimal places in our question. So we will have 2 decimal places in our answer. 2 decimal places in our answer. So what we've done so far, we've counted the decimal places in each part of the question, we've totaled it, we've made our statement, second part. If I've got 2 in the original part of the question, I'll have 2 in the answer. Right. Let's start the question now. Okay. Okay, you fools, let's have a go at this part of the question now. So, let's get our magnetic board rubber. Now, we said we got 2 decimal places in the answer. So if you do it now, you do it at the end of the question, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But for the sake of argument, I'm gonna 1, 2. Okay, for students who are doing it at home, unless you got squared paper here, you know that's 1 square and that's second square, you know where it's gonna go. You might want to wait to do this part after you've done the answer, so then you can see where the numbers physically fit, because you might end up crashing your numbers into your decimal point if you do it too early. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna do the top line 596 times by 7. The decimal points have already been taken care of in the technique, they're in the right place. So for the sake of argument, we can do the question as though it's a normal long multiplication question without a decimal point. Decimal points have been catered for, we've accounted for them, and they've been put in the right place. So let's get the magnetic board marker and cover up the 0 for the moment. So we're doing 596 times by 7. So we're multiplying the top number by the first digit on the first line. That's the rules for long multiplication. 6 times by 7 is 42. 9 times by 7 is 63. 63 add 4 is 67. So 5 times by 7 is 35. 35 add 6 is, don't need this anymore. So the first line, we don't put any decimal points here, there in that question. No decimal points at all. Start putting them in while we do the question. Decimal points are here in the question and here in the answer, and that's it. Now, take the board rubber up, cover up the first digit. Now we do the second digit. So we're going to do all the top number multiplied by the second digit on the second line. Keyword, second digit, second line. But we must always put a 0 across, a star, whatever you want to put there, to push my first digit across into the right column. So you do 6 times by 0 is 9 times by 0 is 0. 5 times by 0 is. Okay, now we're ready to add them in the traditional style of long multiplication. 2 add 0 is 2. 7 add 0 is 7. 1 add 0 is 1. 4 add 0 is 4. Okay. Get the board rubber, put inside. So 59.6 times by 0.7 gives you a total of 41.72. You got the right answer first time, decimal points put in the right place. And as I mentioned to you before, in multiplying decimal numbers, do not try to line up the decimal points. That's the correct technique for addition, subtraction and division of decimals, but not for multiplication. So if I show you now, so these decimal points, they line up in the question, but in the answer, they're in the wrong place. Because we're not trying to line them up. So if you were trying to line them up, you'd end up putting the decimal point here. That's the wrong place for this question. So remember the technique again and again. We are counting decimal places in and counting them out in the answer. Okay, we've got now our 59.6. We've got, let's do question number 26 and then we'll stop there. Right, okay. Right, let's do one more question. 7.25 times by 2.1. That's question number 26 from our okay, 7.25 times by 2.1. The technique again, quickly. Count the number of decimal places. Make a statement. How many there are in the question will be how many there are in the answer. So let's do that quickly. Decimal point, first, second. We have two decimal places. Decimal point, another decimal place. So altogether we have two decimal places in this question, one in this question, and two decimal places at one will give us a total of 3. So our statement is 3 decimal places in the question is equal to 3 decimal places in the answer. Okay, so we've said we've got a question, we've counted, we've made a statement, now we're ready to do the answer. Okay, that looks good. Right, let's set the question out. Okay, right, hang on 1 second, I've written down exactly the same way, pardon me. Okay, again, the technique is not to line up decimal points at the moment. We just line up the columns, we just line up the numbers so they look like the way we have a normal long multiplication question with the columns lining up on the right hand side. Okay, now we've made a statement that we've got 3 decimal places in our answer, so I'm going to do mine now. You can do yours after you've done your answer to make sure you move in the right place. So I'm going to start from here. 1, 2, 3. As you can see, decimal point goes from here to here to here. We are not trying to line up decimal points. Look. That's definitely not a straight line. Okay, let's put that off. Okay. Right. Okay, now what do? We've got 2 digits to multiply. Treat this question like a normal long multiplication question. The decimal points have been taken care of. We know where it's going to go. So, for the sake of argument, we've got to cover up first for the second digit. Because what we're doing 1 digit at a time on each line. So we've got 7 to 5 times by 1. So 5 times by 1 is 5. 2 times by 1 is 2. 7 times by 1 is 7. I'm trying to keep everything in the correct columns. Now, for the second line, we must always put a 0 or a cross or a box under the first digit. Let's swap them over. Now we're going to multiply the top number by the second digit on the second line. Second digit, second line. So, let's have a look at that. So we have 5. 5 times by 2 is 10. 2 times by 2 is 4. Add the 1 will give you 5. The 1's gone now. 7 times by 2 will give you 14. Okay, the next part of the question requires us to add up the two rows. So we have 5 at nothing is 5. 2 at 0 is 2. 7 at 5 is 12. There's the decimal point. Okay, and 4 at 1 will give you 5. And that will give you a total of 'Okay. Right folks, that's the answer. 7.25 times by 2.1 gives you 15.225. Key parts, count the number of decimal places, not points. Because I have 2 points, but I have 3 places. Make a statement, 3 decimal places in the question, 3 in the answer. Set it all out properly, do it like a normal long multiplication question, and you're done. Okay, apologies for me moving backwards and forwards with the camera and disappearing off screen and stuff. These videos are currently made in my home, and as you know, in a home lots of things are happening at the same time. Somebody's coming to the door, so apologies for any time that I disappear from the screen and I come back again. Hopefully in the future we'll have a professional studio and we can have nice full-flowing lessons. Until that time, inshallah, we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum. See you in the next video.